The 24-25 Women's Super League is on winter break and it gives us a perfect chance to assess every team's season so far. We discuss whether they've met expectations in the first half of the season, what transfers they need to do in January, and predict the second half of the campaign. Today our attention on the table-topping Chelsea. An almost flawless start for the Blues with a draw to Leicester that is the only blemish on that record leaves us wondering whether the sky's the limit for Chelsea and Bompastor this season. We discuss how close they are to winning the UWCL, which contracts they should renew, and what position they need to strengthen in to make a quadruple a realistic possibility. This is our mid-season review for Chelsea. Alright, let's talk about Chelsea then. This is the fourth mid-season review of our 12 in the WSL, of course, that we're doing. We're on to Chelsea now, the table toppers, the unbeaten side, the side with, well, almost a perfect record. Leicester, the draw, the only blemish on that record. How much of a bearing does that have on how you view Chelsea's season, Harry?
I think it has a little bit. No one's sitting here going, oh my days, they drew to Leicester, they're not going to win the league anymore. But it is definitely, you have to take it into consideration. It wasn't a very good performance. And I think what it did show is that Chelsea aren't going to be perfect in every single game this season. We know that was going to happen. We didn't think it happened against Leicester. We thought it might happen against a better quality opposition. But Chelsea have now proven, as was going to happen anyway, that they can drop points, that they aren't flawless. And that is a big thing going into the winter break. Because coming back in 2025, yes, they are unbeaten. Yes, they're currently on for their second invincible season in the WSL era. But they are not flawless, they are beatable, they are catchable, and there's still a long way to go this season. A lot of games to be played, a lot of points up for grabs.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you say there about how we shouldn't read too much into Leicester, but there are some questions that arose from the game. I think the fact that Chelsea then went and beat Real Madrid away from home in quite convincing fashion, I think that in terms of how they played, I think that put to bed any worries after the Leicester game. I think what we saw in the Leicester match was just a lack of clinicality. Now, I don't think that's a huge cause of concern because we've seen in other games this season where Chelsea have been clinical. And so, yes, there are some games where the ball just doesn't want to go in the back of the net. It's not like this is a deep-rooted issue that we've seen in loads of games this season. Chelsea have frequently overperformed all of their numbers, their expected goals, their XGA, and their expected points. So there's no fear there for me that they can't create chances or that they can't score goals. That was just a one-off game. So I don't think that reading into it is really valuable. And the fact that Chelsea haven't lost a game, and that's the only game they've even drawn, it's a fantastic start to the season. I think rightfully people saying, in the summer there's a bit of a doubt, obviously the fact that Emma Hayes is leaving, such an iconic manager, such a key part of Chelsea's success. But Bompastor has come in and arguably raised that level. Because Chelsea have gone from being a team that are very difficult to beat to almost impossible.
Yeah.
And that feels to me like a momentous shift. Think back to the Christmas break last year. Chelsea went into it only 3 points ahead of Arsenal, I believe. Because Arsenal went ahead. Arsenal drew level with them the week before by beating them. And then they went and lost to Tottenham while Chelsea won their game. So Chelsea moved back in front. So 12 months on, Chelsea are 6 points clear of everyone, 7 points clear of Arsenal. That for me is a huge difference because what it means now is there is more margin for error. And what that gives Chelsea is the ability to rest up in the league. It means Chelsea can rest players in the league and then it means they can focus on the Champions League more. And that has, for me, has been always where they've been let down compared to Barcelona, compared to Lyon. Now, I think there's still some good sides in the Division 1 Feminine, in the Liga F, but I would say the overall quality of the league is lower. And so when they're going on, because I think if you take the bottom sides in La Liga, in Liga F, now not so much this season because Barcelona haven't been so dominant, but last season it wasn't bizarre to see a 9-0 or an 11-0 scoreline. And we don't see scorelines like that in the WSL. Yeah, Chelsea beat Bristol City, was it 7-8-0 last season?
Yeah, and Crystal Palace 7-0 this year.
This season, yeah, true. But that's not, still that's not 9, that's definitely not anywhere near double digits. And they are one-off games against the sides who are bottom of the league.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Chelsea to beat Palace 7-0 again this season. I think it'd be a lot closer.
And that was at home, wasn't it, for Chelsea? So
no,
I think
it weren't.
Was that away?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, that's not my point. But I think when you consider the overall quality in the league, the thing that always lets Chelsea down is the fact they've got to play some really tough games. Because the average quality of the league is higher and there are more high-quality teams. I think it's the same issue that's impacting the Frauen Bundesliga now. I think the fact that we've not seen Wolfsburg right at the sharp end now for a couple of years, and when we have, they've lost out to Barcelona. But when you consider that in that league you've got Bayern Munich, they're pretty much neck and neck now, Bayern and Wolfsburg, and this season you've got Eintracht Frankfurt been really good. You've got Bayern Leverkusen. That for me has always been the issues that stopped Chelsea winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
But I think this season, without being like, oh yeah, they could just bun off the WSL, that's not the situation they're in yet. But they have got more margin for error. They can rest up and be fairly safe.
They can.
I think I just think it puts them in a better position to be able to challenge for the Champions League.
It does. Also, they can't rest on that fact because we know how incredibly tight a WSL can be at times, and suddenly, yes, they're 6 points clear, but they're 1 or 2 poor results away from being second or third in the league, and that is, that could happen, but really, I don't see it happening. I think that the main thing for me that Bompastor has proven is that the important games aren't the ones where Chelsea are flawless and they play beautiful football. The biggest games of the season aren't when they put 7 past Crystal Palace or when they play certain teams off the park. What has actually improved is the more important games in a league campaign are those scrappy games where you get the points across the line even when you don't play very well. And it's this for me, and I saw someone else say this on social media. That's why Chelsea win the league title, because even this season, when Chelsea have been the second best team, and the Aston Villa game, I think Chelsea could have dropped points. The Leicester game they could have lost. The United game, Chelsea for me probably shouldn't have won that game and didn't really deserve to.
United game.
Yeah, that was really tight, and Chelsea did well to win that. But the difference is in those tight matches, Chelsea go out and they win the game. They get points from the game. You look at when City have played poorly and they drop points at Arsenal. They lost to Everton. When they've had those poor games, Man City, they've dropped points. When they haven't played very well, they've not ended up winning. Whereas when Chelsea can play poorly and they still manage to fight and get a point, or they still manage to fight and win the game 1-0, or they nick a win, and that is credit to Bompastor, because I think we saw times even last season under Emma Hayes, there were times where Chelsea didn't play very well and went on to drop points. Whereas Bompastor has got this side where even on their bad days, they still win games. And that is an incredible position to be in as a team.
I get your point. I think the bigger difference is that Chelsea are now able to beat Arsenal and Manchester City. For me, that is the key difference. You look at last season, and if you take the results from the first half of the season, this season and last season, the only difference is that Chelsea have beaten Arsenal, beaten Man City. In the last season, they drew with Manchester City, they lost to Arsenal. And suddenly, that gap becomes a lot closer. Now, I know City and Arsenal both dropped points elsewhere, and so that has also had an impact, and that was why the gap was as big as it is this season. I think the key difference is that Chelsea beat Arsenal, beat Man City. And this is where I talk about Bompastor being a fantastic tactician. Because I agree, I think with a lot of people say that tactically she's not great. I don't agree with that, but I think what people get confused about is that Chelsea's base structure, what they play in 90% of their games, is simple. And there's a reason it's simple. It's because it allows... The Chelsea players are good enough to play in a simple structure. They are such good players, you don't need to overcomplicate things. I think the major difference between this and Emma Hayes' system is it's less fluid. It's a lot more rigid, this Chelsea side, in terms of positional rotations and in terms of just not letting Lauren James walk about where she wants. It is a lot less fluid. And obviously, we've not really seen LJ on this side. Maybe that will change. Maybe we'll see that fluidity back. I think it's a lot more rigid with Bompastor. But what I've noticed about Bompastor that perhaps wasn't there as much with Hayes, I still think Hayes is a very good tactician, but Bompastor's pragmatism, her ability to change things on the fly, her ability to adapt to what the opponent is doing is fantastic. Take the Manchester City game this season, for example. The way Chelsea set up in that game was different to how they've set up in any other game this season. Yet it was perfect. It was fantastically well executed. And that, for me, is what sets Chelsea out now from the other sides in the league. Obviously, they've got the highest quality squad. I don't think that's up for contention at the moment. But I think it's helped now by the fact that tactically, Bompastor has proven she can outdo Gareth Taylor, and has proven she can outdo, Jonas Heideval. Obviously, now it's Renee Slegers, but I would argue Heideval was a better tactician than Slegers, but we've not seen Slegers tested yet. That will be a big test at the end of January. Yeah. But what we're seeing now is Chelsea being able to get those results, as you say, grinding out those wins against the bigger sides, playing well in those games. And the reason that gives me confidence for the Champions League is when you think about the Barcelona games over the last few years, we've just not quite been able to get over the line. Yeah. I think Bompastor could be the difference in those kind of matches.
Yeah, definitely. She's
very interesting.
She's not a manager that completely changes games, and that has been absolutely key for Chelsea. And it allows players to hit their best form. I think this is the best season that we've seen from Guro Wrighton in the last couple of years on par with her best performances.
With a couple of years ago. Last season, I think a lot of people would now go, well, Guro's incredible. And it's like, well, no, this is Guro's standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that last season she dropped off because of her ankle injury. She had a slow start to the campaign. This season, she's not been flawless, don't get me wrong, but she's been very close to that level that we saw a couple of years ago where her and Sam Kerr took the league by storm.
And that's the thing to consider for Chelsea. This is a Chelsea side that hasn't... We're still in a position where we're waiting for Sam Kerr and Lauren James to come back. And that is absurd.
It's a frightening prospect, isn't it?
It's very worrying for the rest of the WSL that the team who are currently on for an invincible season have still got Sam Kerr and Lauren James to come back, two of the best players in the world on their day. It's incredible. It's just, for Chelsea, things just seem to be getting better and better. And as we get closer to the end, as the games go by, it just feels more and more realistic that Chelsea are going to get to this WSL title with comfortability. I think January's the huge month.
Well,
because
that's what we're
not
about to talk
only
about.
is it the transfer window, but the games in that month, not just the games that Chelsea are involved in, are absolutely critical for the title race.
Yeah, obviously we start with Manchester City, Manchester United. As soon as we come back, the Manchester derby's going to be really exciting. Chelsea, Arsenal at the end of the month, and right at the start of February. But we'll add that to this conversation. Is Arsenal Man City? Well, now, Chelsea could find themselves in a position that if they beat Arsenal, if United beat City, and if Arsenal beat City, where they are around 9 points clear.
For me, there's even a world where that Arsenal City game won't matter. Because if City don't win the Manchester derby and Chelsea beat Arsenal, Chelsea will then be 8-9 points clear of anyone. So even if Chelsea were to go on to lose to Man City, there's still a 6-point margin. And for me, I don't see that happening. But there's still a long way to go. A lot can happen. But to think, and then that's the thing. Suddenly you have that brilliant run of games, and in February, Sam Kerr's here, just going to turn up and just score goals.
Yeah.
Well, she might. We never. That's. I guess that's also a question. Yes, Sam Kerr is incredible, but as we've seen, a lot of players have come back from ACL injuries and not been back to their best. So it's going to be interesting to see. But the thing is for Chelsea...
But half of Sam Kerr is still a very high calibre of player.
And even if Sam Kerr isn't back to her best, I'll just put Myra Ramirez on there or Aggie Beaver-Jones. It's Chelsea. Chelsea are in good position.
And let's talk about January then. What should January look like for them? I've got two main sort of categories. Let's start with contract renewals. Is this the most pivotal thing for Chelsea in January?
I do think so. Now, there's been it looks like Chelsea are definitely favouring to renew Bright, Buchanan and Cuthbert, which is kind of what you have to do. Because
but is that not somewhat surprising that they are renewing both Bright and Buchanan?
Well, I think when you've only got, at the moment... Thing is, they're the only... You got Natalie Bjorn, but for me, they're the only two experienced centre-halves at the club at the moment.
No, I agree. I just wanted to pose that question.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Buchanan out with an ACL injury, so we're not going to see her for the rest of this season. We probably won't see her for the rest of this year. And so that for me is a little bit of a concern. Now, you've definitely got to sign a centre-back, but the issue is, if you sign a centre-back and then Buchanan suddenly comes back, you've then got huge competition for places, which isn't a bad thing. But I think it's going to be very difficult to keep hold of Brooke Aspin and Melis and Pommet, because if there's 4 starting centre-halves ahead of them, now obviously those can't all start, and then you've got these youngsters to try and bleed in. Now obviously there are a lot of competitions, but it can be very difficult to do. But contract renewals for me are important. Now it's Guro and Carnereid are less vital to this conversation because they both have optional 1-year extensions, so Chelsea can trigger that at any time, and the players have no say in it.
Yeah.
Now I don't have any issues with that. I think Guro and Carnereid are both more than happy to stay at Chelsea, it seems. And obviously for Chelsea, key players.
Oh,
no reason to let either of those go. I know some people don't particularly like Carnereid. I don't get that. I think we saw at the start of the season just how good she can be. Yes, she's had a bit of a tough run in December, but hopefully we'll see her back to that, or November, December. Hopefully we'll see her back to that September, October form in the new year, because that level, that Carnereid was unplayable. That's what Chelsea need if they're going to win the Champions League like this season. Players like Carnereid to be playing like that. That was really important. Guro as well, fantastic footballer. People say she's past her best. Then you can close your Google tab now, because this video for you. Guro Wrighton's just incredible. Love Guro Wrighton. In terms of the rest of the squad, then there's not too many starting players, but there are some youngsters. You've got Amy Claypool, obviously the young striker, who I believe is out of contract this summer. You've got Eve Perisset. What would you do about Perisset right now? It's a bit of a weird situation, isn't it?
The problem is she's third in line at right back and just hasn't had the minutes. And for me, if Bompastor's not going to play her, I don't see the point in Perisset staying. I like Perisset. I think she's a decent player, but for her career, from her point of view, why would she stay at a club where she's third choice right back? Because there's a lot of clubs out there across Europe who, she could start for, if not play in a rotation with. Because at the moment, she's behind Lucy Bronze and she's behind Ashley Lawrence. And for me, that shows that clearly Bompastor doesn't really have a place for Perisset. We've seen her play some minutes in the UWCL, but it's not consistent enough for a player of Perisset's quality.
No, and I think the fact that Ashley Lawrence has been preferred at right back says it all to me. I think Perisset's time at Chelsea is probably over, which is a shame. I think that she's a very good player, and I think it's naive considering Lucy Bronze is 32 now, and or 33, I think. She's not going to play forever, but Perisset's got to think of her own career and the fact that she's simply not getting enough minutes. So I can't imagine she's going to renew. We will see. We've got Sophie Ingle as well, who I believe is out of contract this summer. I think given her injury, given her age now, I think she'll probably move on.
Yeah, this would have been this season for me would have been the one just to phase Ingle out and kind of should take her into more of a leadership role and she becomes more a dressing room figure. With the injury, that's kind of just phased her out completely.
I think she probably would have played about as many minutes as Ladd has at United this season. And that's the problem when you think about, what minutes would there be for Ingle? Because Julia Bartel's hardly got a look in. And she has been fit for about a month or two now. You've got Orange Jean-Francois, who's played a fair bit, Vika Captain, Erin Cup, of course, Sjokka Nusken. So there's not really room in there for Ingle anyway. And I think it's not harsh to say that it's probably her time now to move on. I think, I don't think Chelsea are going to get her, but Kira Walsh is available this summer. I think Chelsea will be looking at it. There are reports that Chelsea have explored the possibility of signing Walsh for the summer.
But even without signing anyone, Chelsea are absolutely sorted in defensive midfield. The talent there is incredible. I mean, Vika Captain's kind of been one of the stories of the season, coming in and playing that rotation role with Nusken and Cuthbert in there, and has played superbly.
Yeah, I think people just forget that Vika Captain is 19.
That is
because she's so good. She looks so comfortable. So incredible talent, and I think obviously Chelsea looks so set now for the future with the depth of talent in defensive midfield. Obviously, the pro of signing that defensive midfielder is you can play Nusken higher. But with the amount of attacking players Chelsea have now, how do you fit Sjokka Nusken in higher? So really difficult. But I think the makeup of Chelsea squad really strong at the moment. In terms of talking about January, I think the only area we would suggest improvement in is centre back. Where would you be looking? Obviously, the name that everyone is going to be screaming at their phones right now as they're watching this is Naomi Girma. We've spoken a lot about Girma. Is that the dream? And how possible is it for Chelsea to sign Girma this January? Or indeed the summer?
I think that for Chelsea, Girma, for me, would be the statement signing that screams, we want to win the quadruple. And we want to go out and become the second side to do that in English history. And I do think that for Girma, I mean, she's going to take it, isn't she? Joining one of the best teams in the world. She's a very incredible player. Emma Hayes getting the ear maybe at America, but see what happens. But for Chelsea, that would be the statement signing. It depends how much Bompastor backs and Pomme, because with Buchanan out injured, if Chelsea are going to rotate and Pomme is going to have to come in and start those WSL games, start those cup minutes.
I still don't think 3 centre backs enough though, because at a minimum, Bright is going to have to play every game, or they're going to have to play Bright Saturday, Wednesday. And then Bjorn Wednesday, Saturday, or something like that to make it work. For example, that isn't sustainable for me. I think you'll get another injury in there if you've got players consistently having to play those sort of minutes. I think it's a tough situation, but you've got to bring another centre back for me, or recall Brooke Aspin, because she's not playing Crystal Palace. But I'm not sure she's ready for that level yet.
The other option, obviously, is with the strength that we just talked about in defensive midfield, is that we see Sjokka Nusken do a job there. I mean, she did it last season on a few occasions, and I'd be happy to. I think that from a Chelsea point of view, Nusken, she has quite a lot of qualities as a centre half. Quite physical, quite tall, and good on the ball. That's the bonus of having her.
We lose her goal scoring abilities, which is what we want from Sjokka.
That is true. We've only seen 1 or 2 Nusken goals this season.
That is true.
But I do think that for Chelsea there are options. If they don't sign one, then you've got Pomme and Nusken as your backups. That's not an ideal world, so you probably do want to go out and get one. Girma's the main target. If Chelsea get Girma, then I think the rest of the league should just pack it in. But
fold instantly.
That would be it. If Chelsea got Germa, for me, I'd have no doubts that they will win more than one trophy this season at least.
I think Germa's attainable, as much as WSL fans will claim that she loves the WSL and she's never going to leave and all that. I think it's a deal you can pull off. Obviously, I don't know Naomi Germa personally, but for me, the growth of the game in Europe has been so strong over the last few years. Now, I know America has been the dominant force in the women's game for the last few decades, but I think the tide is turning a bit, and we're seeing now Europe not only I think in terms of eyes, we're seeing a lot more eyes on European football now. Obviously, what international tournaments, the last few have been, the last World Cup was won by a European nation. That's the first time USA haven't won it since the dawn of time. So, I think we are starting to see Europe as a whole become a bit more of all the dominant force, I would say, in women's football. So I think that is an attractive move for Germa. Obviously, Lyon would also be looking at that deal. It's just a question of, can Chelsea pull it off? Do they want to pull it off? Does Germa want that move? I think it can happen. It's just how much Chelsea want it. If that's not possible, go hell for leather for Maya Letitia, because I think she's at that level.
I just think for United, she's unsellable. Is the problem? I don't think
anyone for Jim Ratcliffe is unsellable.
That is true.
That's the key difference. I think there is an amount of money that is a sell.
Anything we've learned about Man United is they make stupid decisions when it comes to earning money.
But I think if you've got a situation where you've got 500,000 on the table for Maya Letitia, it's really difficult for United right now because they have no investment in their squad really. I think if you've got that 500,000 and that's going to come back straight into the transfer budget for the women's team,
probably won't. But
that would have been a Sergeant Ratcliffe's bank account. Where's that 500,000 gone? But yeah, I think if they could reinvest in the women's team, I think it'd be difficult to turn that down. It would be.
Skinner would look at it and go, "You get 2 players for that." The thing
is, I think Skinner would be the most furious person, but he has no say in that. That's the problem, isn't it?
It depends. I think she could probably go for more than that, especially if United are really driving a hard bargain. But that is the kind of thing for Chelsea. I think they are with Millie Bright in the closing years of her career, with Buchanan on the. Well, to be fair, Buchanan's still got quite a few years in her as well, and so is Bright. But world class. You're looking at that world class top centre half.
Yeah, for me, Bright can't be. I think Bright has got this season. I think next season we'll start to see that John Terry-esque decline, where she's still quality, but there are moments that make you worry. And I think eventually, at some point she has to stop playing. Yeah. And I'd rather that be a gradual phasing out with someone like Letitia obviously taking more of the minutes than it be Bright's just retired, so now we have to go and find a centre-back.
Yeah.
That I would rather avoid. So, and I think obviously with Buchanan out for a year now, you can give Letitia a year to bed into the side and then assess what you want to do in terms of your centre-back. So, someone like Letitia, someone like Germa, they would be my options. Yeah. Germa top priority. If that doesn't happen, my Letitia. I don't know if there's anyone else right now available on the market that is at that level that you could reasonably get. Because, Sarah Dorsoon, I don't think that's happening. I don't think you're getting Magdalena Eriksson back. I don't think you're going to sign on either of the Barcelona centre-halves. Of course, if suddenly Mappy Leon becomes available, then you make a beeline over to Barcelona.
What on earth's happened there?
You've got questions, yeah. But I think of available options, Germa's got to be top priority. Yeah. Letitia is another option.
Just tell Germa who her next manager's going to be, and I think she'll be on the plane to London very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Ida is quite disrespected in terms of how he's spoken about, especially by sort of commentators and the general public. I think he is more highly regarded by people working in the game, and understandably so, because I think he is a good manager. Clearly, it didn't work out at Arsenal, but I think he is a good manager. However, that could be a driving force if Germa is sort of swayed by the fact that the public sentiment of Ida isn't high.
Top tactician, top coach.
Oh, he is. And I think a lot, people will credit René Slagers highly, and rightfully so, for how Arsenal have turned their season around. But the tactics aren't dissimilar. No. It's the same tactic. It's just believe in yourself a bit more, and that has made the key difference.
A bit more happy and clappy.
The personnel selection has been better as well, to be fair. But yeah, I think that could be something that sways Germa. And let's talk second half of the season and predictions then. Is it reliant on a centre back coming? If Germa comes in, does that take Chelsea from finalists to winners? Does that take them from finalists to finalists? What kind of impact does that happen? Is that a necessity for Chelsea?
I think a centre half is the difference between Chelsea winning the WSL. I think the centre half is the difference between Chelsea winning 1 or 2 trophies and Chelsea winning 3 or 4. If Chelsea bring in another centre half, they can rotate higher quality. I think there's a reasonable chance Chelsea go out and win the quadruple and match Arsenal's feat from a few years ago. But
20, isn't it?
Yeah, not a few, but you know what I mean. It was a while ago. Yeah. But I think that the WSL, as I said, January's a big month there. If Man City drop points at Man United and Chelsea beat Arsenal, for me, Chelsea are champions no matter what happens in that season. And I think the domestic cups will come down to how much they rotate and how much they prioritise. Lovely run for Chelsea in the in the Subway Cup, with Durham. That will be a second string side. And then is it West Ham or Tottenham or someone like that? I
can't. In the FA Cup?
No, in the Conti Cup.
That's Durham, isn't it?
In the semi-finals.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's Tottenham or West Ham or
exactly
something like that. So for Chelsea, that's a really nice run to the final there. And I think that they can rotate quite nicely in there. FA Cup, Charlton again is a really nice game, and it depends
what the draw is. I hope we play. I hope it's a rotated side, but I think if it is, that will be a good test. It's a side who have been very competitive in the Women's Championship for a while now. This season hasn't exactly gone to plan for them, but I think it will be an interesting game.
Yeah, and then the UWCL again depends on the draw. I think that if they go out and get Barcelona in the quarterfinals, then suddenly it's going to be very interesting.
I find it really weird they haven't drawn the UWCL.
I hate it
because basically we've gone, everyone's through. Now we're going to wait 2 months and then draw it. And their decision to draw it it's the 7th of Feb, I believe it is. It means that you have then 6 weeks to sort out how you're going to get to the games. If they did it now, fans could be booking hotels, booking flights now, rather than rushing to do it in the start of February. So I find
UEFA,
UEFA decision making is fantastic.
It's Chelsea again. For me, the way to win a quadruple is you have to get nice fixtures. Chelsea have got that in the Subway Cup. So far, they've got it in the FA Cup. Interesting in the UWCL because with nicer fixtures, it's easier to rotate and manage minutes, and that's the key to winning 4 trophies. Really, is getting that rotation spot on. Because if you go too weak in one of the competitions, suddenly you lose the chance of winning that trophy. So, if Chelsea get Wolves, if they get Real Madrid in the quarterfinals, they can't. Sorry, Wolfsburg in the quarterfinals, and one of the English side in the semis, and then they get Lyon in the final, then suddenly for me, Chelsea are the favourite. If that's the kind of run they get, then suddenly that's incredible.
That's interesting. Is Lyon or Barca a more difficult game right now?
Barca.
I think Barca's team is very good, but I think the way Lyon have been playing under Joe Montemurro this season compared to how Barca have been playing under Pere Romeu, I think Barcelona looks slightly more beatable. But it's marginal, isn't it? And if Lyon are in that final, then they've beaten Barcelona. Yeah. So then they are the most difficult game. If Barca in that final, they've beaten Lyon.
Or Barca got the quarters to Arsenal.
Well, maybe. No, they can't play them.
Oh, they can. Arsenal can play Barca, can't they?
No, Arsenal. Top league, didn't they?
I hate it. Just draw it now so we don't have to speculate. A little rubbish.
Indeed. So it could all change. If Chelsea get Barcelona in the semi-finals, that could be big. Whatever happens. It'll be very interesting to see. But I think that rounds up everything we want to talk about today. Go and check out our other mid-season reviews. We've done 3 clubs already. We've got another 8 to go, so look out for those. My maths is awful for a moment there. Look out for those as well. Obviously last week we did loads of videos as well, so go and check those out if you're looking for something to binge over this winter break. We're back with the Women's FA Cup next weekend. Very exciting times, and obviously we'll be releasing these mid-season reviews daily in the meantime, so you can check all of those out. But that is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.